Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 5 of the Back to Basics program. Today, we have a lot of fun topics to talk about that I think will be really relevant to where you are in the program right now. So, today we are going to be covering weight loss plateaus. So, if you're let's say you've been on a pattern of losing 1 to 2 pounds per week and now you've kind of stalled out, we have some solutions for you. We're going to talk about exercise and the impact that this has on a healthy lifestyle and a nutrition program. I'm going to go over a few ways to swap out some unhealthier items in your recipes to make you feel like you have something that's a little more indulgent and satisfying as we approach a time of year that has a lot of temptation and social circumstances that make it harder to stay on track. Another area I want to address is inflammation in the body and how this relates to your goals, specifically weight loss. And then finally, we're going to go over some additional testing options that we have. I know a lot of this is group information, and I'm hoping that at the end of this, if any of it stands out to you or if you have questions, you can please let us know so that we can add in that personalized component to this program that is, of course, one of the many benefits to doing this Back to Basics with us. So first, I want to talk about weight loss. Okay, so I know that this is a huge motivating factor for a lot of people to stay on track with any nutrition program. But let me just tell you that weight loss is a small piece of the puzzle on your journey to better health. I want you to move toward all of the other benefits of a high-quality nutrition program. One of them being you get to eat healthy and delicious food. I know that we've gotten a lot of feedback from our recipes, so far very positive. So if you feel that there's any that you don't like, let us know. If there's anything that you're missing and craving, let us know because we can add that in. Hopefully at this point you're feeling more nourished and satisfied. You're sleeping better, feeling more focused. Your mood should be more stable. And overall, I hope that you're feeling more confident by eating just a wide variety of foods, knowing what works for your body. And as far as I know, there's not a whole lot of weight loss programs out there that focus on food quality over numbers. So a lot of times we get hung up on the calorie or the macro content of foods, and that takes away from the therapeutic quality foods that we're providing you with on this program. So even if you're stuck this week or the following week, or even if your weight bumps up a little bit, think about all of these other benefits that you've been experiencing since being on this program. And if you're feeling really motivated, why don't you write some of them down just as a reminder, something to look back at when you are facing some temptation. Now, this is a graph that I really like it because it's a nice representation of normal and healthy weight loss. So as you can see here, it's looking over about a 6 or 7 month period. But here they're starting, and you can see there's a pretty significant drop in the beginning. The trend down for the first few weeks to months seems to be a lot more rapid. Towards the end, probably when they're reaching a more stable weight or getting closer to the body's set point, that weight loss definitely slows down. But I want you to observe just how, the line continues to trend down overall. But if we look here, there's several weeks where you have a pretty big bump up in weight, but usually then you have a pretty big drop in weight the following week. Some weeks are stable. So I just want you to observe this and realize that if you are in a little bit of a rut, that's completely normal, especially if you've been going at this for a while and you're getting closer to your goal weight. So just keep that in mind. Try to stay positive, try to stay focused, and know that weight loss is simply a side effect of a healthy eating program. That's not the main goal, not the end goal. That's just one of the many benefits that you should be receiving. So one of the things that I think can help you get out of a rut is exercise. But the way that our society seems to view exercise, not everyone, but the majority of people that I see, look at exercise as a way to just burn off calories. So you can see here that in this picture, there's just a couple slices of Little Caesars pizza is equal to 65 minutes of cycling. And unfortunately, I think this is a really skewed and flawed way to view the benefits of exercise and its relationship to food. So exercise is another tool in the toolbox with plenty of research backing its health benefits. Exercise is incredibly important for weight maintenance, for weight management once you reach your goal. It also has tons of cardiovascular benefits. It's great for mental health and your hormones. However, the verdict is still out on weight loss, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So this idea that calories in and calories out just gets you where you want to be is really oversimplified. So if we think about the hours in a day, we have 24 hours in a day, and let's say you spend 60 minutes of that in a cycling class. In your cycling class, you burn, 500 calories, we'll say. Now, let's think about what happens to your body for the rest of the day. This is something that's often ignored. So studies have shown that your resting energy expenditure after about 45 to 60 minutes of exercise decreases by about 5 to 15% for the rest of the day. So that's something that we typically don't take into account is we, burn these calories, but then the rest of the day, are you more sedentary just because you feel like you worked out and don't have to do much more? Does your metabolism slow down just as a defense mechanism? We have this, our bodies are a lot smarter than we think. So when we're trying to lose weight, sometimes it works against us. And another common characteristic that I find that people do when they exercise is then they kind of build this cushion of, extra calories or extra room for treats or alcohol simply because they know that they already did their workout, so they feel good for the day, and now they're going to give themselves a little more wiggle room for their diet. And as you can see, these little treats add up pretty quickly. And that also leads me to the theory that, you really can't exercise, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. And that goes beyond just the nutrients that we're putting into our body, but also these common chemicals that come in processed foods. So there are things that really impact our hormones from the foods that we're eating, whether they're, in the containers that we're buying them from, they might be in our environment, or also just as additives and preservatives in the foods. So these are 3 common obesogens that we find in the diet or in everyday things that we're using. One of them being bisphenol A, BPA, which I'm sure that you've heard of. This is a synthetic compound in many types of products like baby bottles, plastic food and beverage containers, also metal food cans. Phthalates are chemicals used to make plastic soft and flexible. They're found in various products like food containers, toys, beauty products, pharmaceuticals, and even paint. Now, this is a major hormone disruptor. And then finally, atrazine is one of the most widely used herbicides in the United States. It's been banned in Europe for over a decade because of groundwater contamination. Atrazine is an endocrine disruptor, and several studies have showed that exposure correlates with birth defects in humans. And there's also, in the United States, there's an overlap between the areas that use the most atrazine and the prevalence of obesity. So this just goes, again, to the theory that it's not just about calories in and calories out, really looking at food quality, trying to, look at the dirty dozen list and the clean 15 list and, try to spend your money where it counts when it comes to organic and conventionally grown produce and animal products. So that is my take on exercise and nutrition. Find something that works for you. Look at it as something that's benefiting your body well beyond just burning calories. So find something that you enjoy, find something that makes you feel good, and find something that won't throw your willpower off for the rest of the day. Now, next, I want to talk about setting your habits for one of the more challenging times of the year. So you guys are about 5 weeks into this program. Many of you have established, the really healthy habits that I think are going to stick, especially if you've made it this far. But as of tomorrow, we've got Halloween coming, and then it just gets busier and busier as we get Thanksgiving and Christmas with shorter days. It's going to get darker. It's going to get colder. So I want to make sure that you guys are motivated and have the right tools and strategies at hand so that you can get through this holiday season Either the same would be an accomplishment or even a little bit down. So Halloween coming up first. If you haven't done this already, if you haven't purchased candy, here are some tips if you are a candy junkie. So purchase your least favorite candy or have your partner purchase candy on Halloween and store it out of sight. Eat before you go trick-or-treating or try to eat something before you start handing out the snacks. Make a large meal today, October 30th, so that you have leftovers on Halloween. That way, if you're busy with your kids trick-or-treating or you have people coming to your house, you have a healthy meal that's ready for you and you don't have to order in something that wouldn't typically be on your program. You can make a sweet treat, and I'll talk about that soon with our crutches. You can have fat bombs, avocado mousse, dark chocolate, and I have some other ways that you can bake and still stay compliant with your program. Finally, there's a way to remove candy. You could use the Switch Witch, which is where you swap out the candy in the house for maybe a toy for your kids, do a candy donation to maybe some sort of office or food bank or I'm not sure where, or just throw it away. And ultimately, like the big thing, if you're going to keep candy in your house, is to store it out of sight. So it's every time that you look at that candy, it can cause temptation. So it's best to keep it in a bin in an area that's not at eye level and keep your vegetables, your fruits, your healthy foods available for you to see often and therefore crave more often. Next, I have some crutches that you can use to make some of your favorite treats just a little bit more healthy. So tiger nut flour and cassava flour. And these are actually really, really easy to bake with. They've got a great texture, a pretty mild flavor. I made a couple different recipes using the tiger nut flour recently. It was cookies, muffins, and my kids are super picky eaters and they absolutely loved them. Cassava flour is another one. These are both tubers, so they're not nuts. So don't worry about that if you have any nut allergies. And the cassava flour is very similar. Both of these have a lower carbohydrate content than your standard flour. They're, very nutrient dense, high in fiber, and easy to use and cook with. I like to kind of rotate these, put them in the mix with things with almond flour and coconut flour, because just as we talked about earlier, a lot of these plant foods still have anti-nutrients in them. So it's always good to switch them up. Almond flour and coconut flour, these I actually find, shockingly, to be a little bit harder to bake with. They make the baked good a lot denser, but they still taste pretty good, but just keep this in mind. If you haven't used any of these before, make sure that you find a recipe. Otherwise, you can't really use these as a one-to-one exchange for your regular flour. They're going to require some changes to the entire recipe. Avocado oil and coconut oil in place of a canola oil or even butter is a nice lighter way to get some healthy fats into your baked goods. Some non-nutritive sweeteners, so if you're looking to cut back on sugar, because of course if you wanted a natural sweetener, you could always use honey or maple syrup, but that's still going to drive up that blood sugar response, even if it is from a natural source. So I would say the best one that I like to bake with right now would be the allulose. It's a one-to-one exchange for sugar. I purchased the allulose, the tiger nut flour, and the cassava flour all from Amazon because I haven't been able to really find it locally. So I've had really good success with that in baking. It's naturally derived sugar alcohol. It doesn't cause any fluctuation in blood sugar. It does not impact the gastrointestinal system at all. A lot of times sugar alcohols cause some discomfort, so you won't experience that. Monk fruit is another one that a lot of people seem to have success in baking with it. And then finally, of course, we have stevia. That's a little bit more bitter, so I'd probably cut it with either monk fruit or the allulose if you're looking for the non-nutritive stuff. Another thing that you can do if you're not into baking or you're just wanting a more natural approach, whole food approach to curbing sugar and a sweet craving, you can use fruit as the base for something. So I like bananas a lot for this purpose, freezing bananas, really ripe ones, and then just putting them in the blender with a little bit of water, and that kind of comes out like a frozen yogurt consistency, and you can put some nut butter or dark chocolate chips on it, and it kind of seems like an ice cream treat. I also like to take bananas and cut them up into slices and then put some cocoa powder on them, stick them in the freezer, and then you have these nice little kind of like ice cream bites that you can pull out for a snack. Frozen grapes are another really great one to, you can slowly snack on these so that you're not eating too much of them at one time. Or even using things like apples or blueberries and dipping them into like coconut milk or yogurt and then topping them with either coconut flakes or nuts or chocolate chips even for, a little bit of sweet and a little bit of healthy from your fruit. And then finally, another really easy way to replace some, some foods that aren't necessarily going to be helpful for our goals on this program would be swapping out, regular bread and using something like a romaine leaf or butter lettuce or collard green as a wrap instead of, your regular bread. Also using cauliflower in place of, let's say, a mashed potato or rice. That's a really great one. Palmini noodles. So this is something new that I've been trying. It is hearts of palm in the shape of a noodle. Again, purchased from Amazon. They've got a really mild flavor and pair well with kind of like a marinara sauce. So going with that Italian theme. Those are really great. Same with, spaghetti squash is another great option. Spiralized zucchini, butternut squash. Those are all really great noodle alternatives too. So think about that when you are getting the craving for something comforting and kind of starchy and carby this time of year. Just think about all of the amazing things that you can replace them with and still stay in alignment with your program. Now, finally, I want to touch on inflammation and how that could be impacting your health goals and your weight loss goals. Now, there are different types of inflammation in the body. Typically, an acute inflammation might happen, let's say, when you fell down during your workout and now you have a big cut on your leg. That would be a sign of acute inflammation. Your body's going to go to the area that's feeling, hurt and swollen and irritated and address that issue, which is a good thing. Chronic inflammation is something that we really want to avoid. So a low-grade chronic inflammation is something that could lead to things like arthritis, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, autoimmune diseases. And there can be a lot of reasons for low-grade inflammation, but during this nutrition program, that's what we're going to be focusing on, of course. And typically, inflammation is something that I sometimes look into more for people that are doing all of the right things with their lifestyle. So they're doing the right balance of exercise. They're eating a whole foods, non-processed diet in the right ratios. And let's just say we can't find anything that's going on, but they're feeling stuck where they're at right now. And it's not really, the healthiest weight for their body frame. So a lot of times we can look at inflammation from foods or environmental, components that might be the issue here. So typically, I like to think of this as, let's say you went on a bender on a Packers game day and you had lots of food that you typically don't have. And the next day you're like, all right, I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to have a green smoothie for breakfast and a salad with some salmon for lunch and some steamed veggies and chicken zoodle soup for dinner. And the next day you're up 2 pounds. So typically I would look at this as a sign of inflammation coming from the food that you ate previously that might be healthy for one person's body, but since we all have this bioindividuality, meaning we all respond to a stimulus differently because of our genetics, the environment, our gut microbiome, there's a certain food that's just not working for your body. And so we can kind of explore that with different testing or elimination diets to see if that's truly the case. So as far as identifying inflammation, these are some symptoms that are related to inflammation caused from the foods that you're eating. Are you experiencing bloating after a meal, constipation, energy dip in the middle of the afternoon, body aches and pains, irritability, depression and anxiety, hormonal issues, water retention? I think another easy way is just to see if, you seem to fluctuate with your weight and after eating, let's say it's eggplant, on a Monday, and then Tuesday you wake up and you're 2 pounds heavier, but then you remove it for several days and you're back to where you are, that's a sign that maybe that food is not necessarily working well for your body. So here's some ways that we can kind of get to the root of it and figure out what's going on. An easy, quick, and accurate way to look at food sensitivities would be through an IgG panel. We can offer this with a test that you take at home. You just prick your finger, stick it in the mail, and then your results come within usually 1 to 2 weeks. Or you could try a more conservative approach, which would be an elimination diet. And Rebecca and I can walk you through how to do that if you feel like food sensitivities might be an issue for you. Another area that we covered more in depth a couple weeks ago has to do with gut dysbiosis. So if you're experiencing a lot of digestive issues, then you might be also experiencing some micronutrient deficiencies. You might have an overgrowth of certain types of yeasts or bacterial markers that could then impact how you are digesting food, what you're craving, how you're feeling, how much water you're retaining. And typically we can look into this with an organic acids test or a stool analysis, which are both things that you could do, again, from the comfort of your own home. And then finally, hormonal imbalances. So as women, we have some amazing benefits from our hormones, but then we also have some amazingly awful symptoms from imbalanced hormones. And from a nutritional standpoint, a big push would be on fiber and cruciferous vegetables to stimulate the phase 2 detoxification pathway that often gets clogged up because we don't have the right nutrients to push through those pathways. And as a result of that, we end up with estrogen dominance and some imbalance of hormones. So a gentle detox could help with that. I think if you're following the program, you're already a step in the right direction with that. But we do have, again, some tests that can identify how your, where your hormones are at and different markers of methylation and detoxification to see if you have any issues with that as well. And that's all I have for our presentation today. I think we only have about one more week on this program, so if there's anything that you're looking to cover for next week, please shoot us a message and let us know. Thank you so much.